Snowflakes fell silently outside the towering glass windows of the Evans Corporation headquarters, each one glimmering briefly before disappearing into the December night. Inside, the lights of the 40th floor still burned brightly, though the rest of the city had gone home to warmth, laughter, and family. Ethan Evans sat alone in his office, the glow of his computer screen flickering against the dark circles beneath his eyes. He was one of the youngest CEOs in the country, brilliant, relentless, and feared, but tonight, none of his millions could fill the silence that wrapped around him like a cold blanket. The world below sparkled with Christmas lights and music, but up here, it was sterile, empty, a kingdom built on ambition but devoid of warmth. Ethan took a sip of his untouched coffee, staring at the framed photo on his desk. His parents, both gone years ago, smiling beside a boy who used to believe that success would make everything right. Now, he had all the success anyone could dream of, yet he felt more alone than ever before. If you believe that kindness, love, and second chances can change even the coldest hearts, then please, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this story with someone who needs a little hope this Christmas. Ethan's staff had left hours ago. The office Christmas party downstairs had ended early. He had attended only long enough to make a brief speech before retreating back to his solitude. As midnight approached, the city lights blurred beneath the frost forming on the windows. He thought about going home, but home was just a word. His penthouse was immaculate, modern, and silent, not a trace of life within. No family, no laughter, no warmth. He sighed, closing his laptop, when something caught his eye, a small, pink envelope sitting near the elevator entrance to his private office. He frowned. His assistant was meticulous. No one ever left unapproved items on his floor. Curious, he picked it up. The handwriting was childish, uneven, with glittery stickers spelling, "Merry Christmas, Mr. E." For a moment, Ethan almost smiled, a rare, genuine flicker on his usually stoic face. He tore it open carefully. Inside, written in colorful crayon, were uneven words that made his heart freeze mid-beat. "Dear Mr. E, we know you're always alone up there. Mommy says you're very busy, but no one should be alone on Christmas. We left you cookies, they're not burned this time, and some cocoa mix. We hope it makes you smile. Merry Christmas. The Triplet girls from floor 3, Lily, Lucy and Lana Hart." Attached to the letter was a small drawing of 3 smiling stick girls, holding hands with a tall man in a suit, beneath a Christmas tree. Ethan's throat tightened unexpectedly. He didn't remember ever noticing children on the 3rd floor. That was where the janitorial and maintenance staff worked. He looked down, and sure enough, next to his office door sat a paper plate wrapped in foil and a small plastic bag filled with cocoa powder and tiny marshmallows. He stared at the items for a long time, a war of emotions stirring inside him. No one had given him a Christmas gift in years. For someone who signed million-dollar contracts daily, this little handmade gesture felt strangely priceless. That night, instead of going home, Ethan heated the cocoa in the office kitchen, sitting by the window as snow blanketed the city. The cookies were slightly hard, unevenly shaped, but they were perfect. Each bite brought back something he didn't realize he'd lost, the feeling of being remembered, of being seen. Over the next few days, Ethan couldn't get the letter out of his mind. Between meetings and conference calls, his thoughts drifted back to the handwriting, the innocence, the kindness of 3 little girls who didn't know him, but cared enough to reach out. He found himself taking the elevator to the lower floors, just to see if he could spot them. Then, one cold morning, he did. Near the maintenance office, 3 identical girls in puffy coats were chasing each other, giggling as they helped their mother, a tired-looking woman stacking cleaning supplies into a cart. Ethan froze. She looked exhausted but gentle, her eyes warm even behind the fatigue. He recognized her immediately, Clara, the night cleaner who sometimes worked late after his team left. He hesitated, unsure how to approach, but before he could retreat, one of the girls noticed him. "Mommy, it's Mr. E," she cried, running up to him. Clara turned quickly, startled, clearly nervous to see the CEO. But Ethan only smiled softly, holding up the pink envelope he'd kept in his coat pocket. "You must be Lily, Lucy, and Lana," he said quietly. "I got your letter." Clara's face flushed with embarrassment, but before she could apologize, Ethan knelt to the girl's level. "Those cookies were the best Christmas gift I've ever gotten," he said honestly. The girls beamed, and for a moment, even Clara smiled. That brief encounter changed something in him. For the first time in years, Ethan found himself leaving work earlier. He stopped buying meaningless gifts for clients and instead began organizing a holiday drive within his company, not for publicity, but because he wanted to give back. He made sure every maintenance worker and cleaner received a bonus, though he said nothing about it. But what stayed with him most were those Triplet girls. Sometimes, after work, he'd pass by the third floor just to hear their laughter echoing faintly down the hall. He didn't know why it mattered so much, only that it made the building feel less like a cage. Then, one evening in January, Clara didn't show up for her shift. Days passed, and she was still absent. Something in Ethan twisted with worry. He asked HR discreetly about her. They said she had taken an unpaid leave due to a family emergency. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Without thinking, he drove to the modest neighborhood listed in her file. The small apartment complex looked worn, with a faint glow from one window. Through the thin curtains, he saw Clara sitting beside a hospital bed. One of the triplets, Lana, lay pale and motionless, an oxygen tube under her nose. Ethan's chest constricted painfully. He quietly knocked on the door. Clara opened it, startled, her eyes wide and red-rimmed. "Mr. Evans, what are you?" he interrupted gently. "I came because I was worried." His voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. Clara hesitated but stepped aside. The apartment was small, filled with drawings and children's laughter frozen in photographs. But tonight, it was quiet, heavy with fear. Lana had pneumonia, Clara explained. The medical bills were overwhelming. She was doing everything she could, but she didn't have insurance. Ethan listened silently, guilt and compassion twisting together. For years, he had built walls around himself, convinced that kindness was weakness. Yet here he was, sitting on a worn couch in a stranger's apartment, feeling more human than he had in years. Without saying much, he took out his phone and made a call to his company's insurance provider. Within an hour, he had arranged for full medical coverage and hospital care for Lana, under a special company fund. Clara broke down in tears. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. Ethan shook his head. "You already did," he said quietly. "You and your girls gave me back something I didn't even know I'd lost." Weeks turned into months. Lana recovered, and Clara returned to work part-time. But something had changed in Ethan, too. The man who once hid behind glass walls now visited the third floor often, helping fix decorations, carrying boxes, even sharing lunch breaks with the maintenance crew. The triplets adored him, calling him Mr. E. They often left him doodles and tiny letters that he kept pinned to a board in his office. By the next Christmas, the sterile office that once echoed with silence was transformed. Ethan ordered a massive tree for the lobby, filled the halls with lights, and hosted a holiday party not just for executives, but for every employee, janitor, and guard. Clara and her daughters were the guests of honor. As the triplets ran around, laughing and handing out cookies, Clara stood beside Ethan, her eyes glistening. "You've changed so much," she said softly. Ethan smiled faintly. "No," he said, "you and your girls just reminded me who I used to be." When the girls stood on stage that evening to sing a Christmas carol, Ethan watched them with a heart so full it hurt. As their tiny voices filled the room, he realized something profound. For all his wealth and success, this was the first time he felt truly rich. He remembered the night he'd found that first pink letter, how something so small had cracked open a door he thought was forever sealed. Kindness, he understood now, wasn't a weakness, it was the very thing that made life worth living. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and share. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us what truly matters in life: love, kindness, and second chances. Before we end, tell us in the comments, what's the most meaningful act of kindness you've ever received or given? That night, as the party lights dimmed and laughter echoed through the halls, Ethan stood by the window once again. The city glittered with snow and stars, but this time, it didn't feel distant. It felt alive. He felt alive. The triplets ran up to him, wrapping their tiny arms around his legs. "Merry Christmas, Mr. E." They chirped in unison. He knelt, hugging them back tightly, a lump rising in his throat. "Merry Christmas," he whispered. And for the first time in years, he truly meant it.